too much. Oh, there it is. We got the red dot up now, man. Cool. So here we go, Angela. Here we go. We haven't done this in a while, so I got to pause for a second, right, and get ready. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Fall Line with KS and Company. I'm Dave Capron. I'm here with my buddy, Angelo Ross, and we are psyched to be back. It snowed here in New Hampshire, and I think it snowed in PA. He said he had more wind. I didn't see much snow down there. Maybe he's going to come north this week up to Stowe. But we are here tonight with Mike Hafer, Alpine team member, third term from out west. He's probably hasn't even had dinner yet, so we got him on the podcast before he even ate, so we'll see how he survives. We'll try not to keep him all night, but we do like to chat. Angelo, what's going on, buddy?
Nothing. How long has it been? A month. We haven't been.
It's been a month.
For a month.
Since Murmurs. I'm so psyched we got Mike here tonight, man, because people have been asking, when are we going to do another one? And here it is. We got to load this one out there quick.
The people were disappointed.
Yes, they were. They were last week when we were on the road. Yeah. But looks like, Mike, you're still in the office, I think.
No, actually, I'm at home. So,
are you? Oh, cool.
No, I got off the hill. I'm home at 5. And yes, my lovely wife is making a pizza upstairs. I can smell it. So I may get sidetracked here just a little bit as we go forward.
That's okay. That's the chaos we love on here. Because we used to have Jake on the bed, and Jake would make lots of noises. The cats would run across Angelo's desk, and now he's down in the office downstairs. So it's a little different. I
think given the choice between pizza and us, I'd take pizza too.
Yeah, because there's probably beer with that pizza too. Oh, well, hey, while we've got you here, Mike, the first question, there's so many people out there. I know Lil Pearson from up near the Balsams, when we used to ski at the Balsams, unfortunately can't ski there anymore. They closed down. Les Sutton trying to get it open. But Lil always loves this question. She loves us to ask, how did you learn how to ski? And, how old were you? Who taught you? Was it family, friends? Was it a ski lesson or some other fun experience?
I love this question. So, my first experience skiing was, I was 12 years old in Michigan. It was Cannonsburg, Michigan. I think it was one of those after school events. It was definitely after school, right? And big time in the Midwest where everyone skis 4 or 5 o'clock at night, get on the hill for a couple hours, and there you go. So went up there with a couple of friends, and my buddy named Todd Dubridge brought me out, said, hey, you've got to go try this. And so he brought me to the top of the Bunny Hill in Cannonsburg and said, all right, just make a snowplow. You'll be fine. We'll meet you at 9 o'clock. Well, you can imagine how that went. And I met some new people in the lift line when I crashed into the lift line after my first or second run. And anyways, just fell in love with sliding on the snow. I did not like the rope tow, but I got that figured out that night. But but other than that, I didn't ski much until I was 24. So maybe I had, I think 30 or 40 days, we'll call it 40 days up until the time I was 24. And that's when I started getting into it and started attending real lessons and real clinics with certified instructors.
Wow, I didn't know it was that late. That's probably the latest we've heard one of our team members. Don't you think, Angelo? 30, 40 days? And then 24?
That's a record. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Andy Dokken was in the realm or something similar. He and I had some similar pathways there coming up through the ranks. So,
oh man, that is so cool. So skiing wasn't a big thing when you were real young. 30, 40 days. So when you said you started taking lessons and all that after 24, I mean, did it start then, like the obsession right on when you started taking lessons, or was it still kind of a slow start?
Actually, the obsession, and I don't know where the obsession came from. It was 12, 13. It was after that first experience where a couple of ski magazines landed on my doorstep somewhere, somehow. And just started thumbing through them. And it was Ski Magazine. I remember back in the day. And somehow I just had an attraction to the mountains, and then obviously to to the sport. I grew up in Michigan, addicted kind of the first time, the first feeling of sliding on the snow. My uncle, who helped me get into this, and I think we'll get into this a little bit later here, he was an instructor, and for quite a while. I always found it fascinating listening to his stories about living in Colorado at the time, where he was teaching at Copper and Crested Butte. Maybe that was part of the addiction as well. But I don't remember, but I always had a draw for the mountains. And it was one thing growing up in Michigan with snow on the ground, but the mountains were something else. They always fascinated me.
What were some of the other sports you played when you were younger? Because you weren't on
wrestling. Correct. Wrestling and football were my two sports. So, and when I look back, I think those sports, especially when it comes to an athletic stance, really helped understanding how to stand, how to be ready to move, and obviously then all the fitness that comes with those two sports. But those were the sports that I grew up with.
Hey, that's interesting. We haven't had someone on talking about wrestling, Angelo, and watching the MMA stuff, and we think about the base and how balanced they are when they're getting hit by things and pushed out of the way. I mean, that has to be a big factor of how you're balancing.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because, and often I relate in my lessons, if I have someone that has some type of either martial arts or wrestling background, you deal with a lot of momentum and you figure out how to move and how to remain upbeat is a good way to put that. Because someone's always trying to take you down. So maybe a little like skiing moguls.
Yeah, maybe that's where he gets all that activity. When we see every time we see you in the bumps, we definitely see the dolphin turns come out. Because I think there was just a photo we had it on Facebook or Instagram a few weeks ago in there with the new uniform with the doing the little dolphin there, tips coming down.
Yeah, and I love the comment on that one. Someone posted something regarding just because of the angle of one of the shots. Someone posted, I didn't know you know how to mono ski. One of the shots looked like the skis were tied together. So yeah, that had a lot of that shot I think had a lot of attention. So, and I apologize to whoever made that comment. So.
Angela, you had something there, I think.
Well, what I was gonna say was, I think it's interesting that wrestling and football, it's not just dealing with pressures that are coming at you and energy coming at you. You have to learn how to generate it and push back with both of those sports. And I think it's a pretty solid parallel to the martial arts too. And that my 12 to 24 year old range, I was skiing a little bit more than maybe you did in those couple of years from 15 to 24, but the martial arts, Mike, were huge in learning how to stand in a stable posture, but not a rigid or static posture, like a dynamic and moving posture. I think there's a lot of value to all those activities. Yeah.
And I think leverage plays a big role in that too, because when you learn how to move and leverage your body against someone else, because there were guys that I went against that had less strength than I had at the time, and they were able to beat me on a number of different levels. And understanding leverage, how you can create strength through leverage, was a pretty neat thing to start to understand, I think. And then, like you said, just to transfer those experiences forward really helped. So yeah, I think there's something to that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. We'll have to, maybe we can get some wrestling going on between the team members. That'd be fun. Like at Masters Academy, we'll have like a big wrestling tournament. I'm not sure Troy would win that.
Is there a dunking contest? Might be able to win the dunk contest.
Poor Troy. But the one that I worry about, the one that I really worry about, is bringing Eric Lipton back, because I think that guy packs some power. So
yeah,
he's the one I'm going to avoid.
Yeah, we could put Lipton, bring Lipton back, and we'll put Lipton with Matt Boyd. That'd be
perfect.
Matt can be pretty scrappy, I think. Jeb would just be over there laughing. He wouldn't. He's like, "Nah, I'm the head coach. I can't get involved in that." Oh, man. So what are some of your earliest fun memories? I mean, you said you started learning at 12 and kind of skiing with buddies and that. I mean, what were some of the fun things that you did with them through those early years skiing?
Man, it was, we made the best we had out of what we had. And if anybody's ever been to Canonsburg, and I know a lot of folks listening to this have been to really small hills, right? A couple hundred vertical. You make the best out of it. If there's a little bump, you turn it into a jump. If there's not a bump, you built a jump. If you built a jump, you were prepared to get your ticket clipped by ski patrol at the time. how times have changed, right? So dating myself a little bit there, but we made the best out of it. And I think that was the cool thing, is how we came together for common ground or common vision, right? In trying to make it down the hill with the most fun that we could have. And then it was just camaraderie between each other. And that's what it was really about. And so those were my, when I think about 12 to 18 or whatever the case. And then from 18 to 24, if those of you who don't know, I was in the military and I had some opportunity to ski in Italy and France, a couple other places, Austria. And again, it was about the camaraderie. And I remember there was a time where it was dumping snow in Italy, and I was out there in blue jeans and one of our foul weather jackets, which I think was like made out of canvas or something. I don't know, whatever it was made out of. It definitely wasn't the high-tech North Face gear that we have now, but no hats, leather gloves, whatever the case, whatever we could find. And there was there was one of the guys on the mountain who dropped one of the ropes and called three of us over to go ski it, and all my military buddies that I was skiing with that day. And so we go over, and it's a couple feet of fresh snow. Started skiing that. It was one turn fall, two turns fall, that type of thing. But again, and you guys have all been through this, and that first powder experience. And we were just laughing and having a great time. And by the end of the day, you're soaking wet. You're riding the bus back to at that time, back to the ship. And just soaking wet, but yet it was one of the most memorable experiences that you could ever have. And it was nothing like we ski, or how, the three of us, and I've seen you guys ski, how you would attack a powder run or an untracked run now. And yet now is just as much fun as it was then, or then was just as much fun as I have now. It's just at a different level. And that camaraderie, I always struggle with that saying, there are no friends on a powder day, because I think it's just the opposite. I think being able to ski with your friends on a powder day even make it better. I think we push each other to a higher level. We push each other faster. And that's the excitement, and that creates more energy when we're skiing. So that's what hits really deep and at the heart to me for why I love the sport. So.
Hey, Mike, what was your job in the military?
My job was in electronics, with a specialty in a missile system. And so NATO Seaspro missile system was the system that I worked on. It was a self-defense system, and I was on board an aircraft carrier.
Very good.
Cool.
Thank you for your service.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely. You. Yeah, I knew you were in the service, but you don't chat about it too often. It's kind of that humble, quiet thing. You said, as you just said, not too many people know. So, but was it was it 4 years, 6 years?
6-year commitment. So a couple of years of school, and then 4 years on board the carrier. So
yeah, that's awesome. So wrestlers and go ahead.
What part of Michigan are you from?
I've got to figure out how the camera is showing it. So for me, this is the way I'm looking. Yeah, okay,
that's Vulcan. Yeah, this is Michigan. That's Vulcan.
So yeah, I have your fingers anyway. So, for me, if this is Detroit, Grand Rapids area, so it was this area, southwestern corner, so Lower Peninsula. Even though people continue to believe that I'm from the UP because they say I have an accent, I never hear it. But if I say something, you'll catch something. Someone will catch something. I'm sure it'll come out. So,
yeah. So I'm just curious with your. No, go ahead, Angel. I'm sorry, you got another one. No,
I don't know if I've ever told Mike this, but I spend a little time in Michigan in the summers.
Yeah.
There you go.
We meet. I do a bicycle tour. We meet in Traverse City, and then we shuttle up to a little town called Indian River, and then the first day we pedal up to Mackinac City, spend a couple nights, ferry across a couple nights on the island, and then down to Petoskey and Charlevoix and Glen Arbor to wrap it up. And it's beautiful country. Anybody because Michigan was never on our radar in southwestern Pennsylvania. Like when we vacationed, we always went east to the shore, usually Ocean City or something like that. And I remember the first time I got a call to go to Michigan for a bike tour. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Michigan? Like, really? And I got up there and my jaw dropped for the whole trip. And I've been there. I've maybe done that trip 12 or 14 times now, and my jaw drops every time. So if you've never been to Michigan and you get the opportunity, do it. It's spectacular. Maybe not the skiing.
I don't know. Produced an Alpine team member. It has to be somewhat good.
But he left.
Well, I know, but it started there. It's the same. I mean, you'd hear it from so many of our team members have come from really small hills where it started. The Boyd brothers started skiing. They were PA boys, and a lot of other crew. Lipton, PA guy. I mean, he went elsewhere to ski, but it's neat to see the small hill, those small areas create that passion. And, the question I wanted to ask was with your military background. And then I know wrestlers, man, they're just train and work hard and never stop. I mean, how much of that worked into where you are now? I mean, it had to have. I mean, your work ethic and determination to get something done.
Yeah. I don't know if it was the wrestling. I don't know if it was my upbringing. My work ethic has always been strong. How it related, I remember when I moved out to Tahoe right after, or 3-4 months after I got out of the military. It started snowing pretty early in Tahoe that year. We were open around Thanksgiving, with a lot of terrain open. I started off as a snowmaker, and I was working the swing shift, so 4 to midnight, and I would show up at the resort about 9 or 10 in the morning. I would ski all day, every day, and go to work. And when I was done, I think I did that for 60 or 70 days straight. And then we had such a good winter that they shut snowmaking down. And then I crossed over into the ski instructor ranks. And but to the point where, I think that focus or that drive, and especially on the technical side, because like from the wrestling background, it was very technical, where if you were sound with your movement patterns or your moves in wrestling, it would help you become better. It would help you win matches. So I think on the skiing side, the faster I learned how to ski, the more terrain challenges it presented to me, and I enjoyed that. So I've always found the technical elements of sports incredibly exciting to me. And so, I mean, now that you bring up the question, I never really thought of it that way before. But I think I've always had a technical mindset and trying to perfect that technical aspect. And sometimes that can be a detriment as well, because sometimes it can hold you back from letting yourself go and tends to create more of a robotic type of personality on your skis versus the looseness and the freedom and such. So it's something that I do understand about myself that I do need to balance. And it's something that I also appreciate where I've taken it. So.
Yeah, that's cool. So with your drive to the team, I know your uncle, it was your uncle, right?
Correct.
Was very influential in that. Can you tell us a little bit about him and how he encouraged you to become a team member and teach?
Perfect. Yeah, that's a great question. So my uncle was working at Copper Mountain the same time Sean Smith was Sean Smith was working there as, I believe, director of the school, if I remember correctly. And so my uncle had a ton of influence around team members from his experiences. Then when I moved out to California, and the way I ended up in California in Tahoe was that I called up my uncle and said, "Hey, can I come spend a winter on your couch? I just want to go ski, get out of this disciplined lifestyle." And so every night we would talk skiing, every single night. And then when I became an instructor, it became more intense because I had exams coming up and such. And he was a DCL at the time. And so when we had those conversations, we continued to talk about his history and how he came up through the ranks. And he would give me ideas, and he would talk to me a little bit about what, the possibilities or the opportunities were. And he saw a lot of potential in me and how I improved just for the first few months I was out there. So at that time, toward the end of that first year I was out in Tahoe, he and I went to the PSIA Western Spring Convention together, and we were skiing in all the same clinics. And the format was a 3-day format. You take a clinic in the morning, you'd switch clinicians for the afternoon. So it was a 2-clinic day, and I was able to go out and ski with a couple of team members. And so my uncle kind of already knew who the team members were. And one of the most memorable clinics that stood out to me was when I went out with Dave Manater. And so having that influence, my uncle, and helping him guide me into seeing the best of the best and how they clinic and teach and what we learned from them, and not only what we learned, but how much fun we had with those team members as well. So
I was just wondering, Mike, making the team is an absolutely amazing, tremendous achievement in itself. But is that to you the biggest achievement or thing that you've accomplished as a ski teacher? Is there something else that stands out that matches that or comes close or maybe even is bigger than that?
I think the team is incredibly important to me, and where I've ended up. To me, it's been the journey along the way to make the team. Because I didn't make the team the first 2 tryouts, first 2 attempts. And I know a lot of people can attest to this. And yet those first 2 tryouts in 2000, 2004, I met a ton of people through that process. And so when we talk about achievements, I think some of the bigger achievements were, one, digging deep inside and taking feedback and figuring out what to do with that feedback. And I've said it before, that I believe that the team or this process has made me a better person and that's something that I think is a bigger achievement than making the team. And then along the way, I met a wonderful lady teaching skiing, and my wife was in grad school when we met, and this was at Alpine Meadows back in 2001. And so that's where we met. And then a couple of years later, we were married. And and again, all of this was because of the journey to make the team. So when we talk about achievements, I look at those being the achievements more so than making the team. And yet I hope that the team leads me to other achievements along the way. So the team is part of it and not necessarily the biggest achievement. And I'm incredibly proud to be a three-time team member too, because it's by any means, it has not been easy along the way. And it continues to challenge me every single day. So.
Yeah. I know Angelo must love that answer, because Angelo loves the experience and learning from the experience and creating those. That's kind of your gig, Angelo, with the, being outdoor. I'll shut up. Go ahead.
Shit, now I have to say something.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd ramble for a little bit.
I could ramble a little more. I knew you're ready. I mean,
no, we know you can ramble.
Yeah, I know.
No, I think that's the hallmark. Everything you said just now is the hallmark of somebody who's paying attention to the process. You know, I watch folks go for any goal, and typically, like in our line of work, it's typically somebody shooting for level 2, level 3, and they equate success at that event as success. And until and unless that's achieved, they don't appreciate the other stuff along the way. And I like that you're paying attention to the other stuff. You know, I think it brings a richness to the experience that some people miss out on. You know what I mean by that? And I think that's to be applauded, because, you know, I haven't made the team. I haven't tried out for the team, but it can't be the biggest thing. There's got to be other things that are big, and connections with people, that's got to be the biggest. Yeah. I mean, that's what life's about.
So, because it's hard when we're not successful with our goals. And then we go through that, if you will, you can call it the Sarah principle or whatever, where you get the shock, the anger, resentment, etc. But then the healing process starts taking place. But that time that we begin to start processing why we didn't make the team, maybe I wasn't the right fit for that team. Maybe my skiing wasn't there. For me, it was my people skills weren't there the first couple times around. Once I start seeing people, and once for myself that I've experienced that and went through that stage of processing, that's where the real learning took place. But we've got to allow for that processing stage to take place to be able to allow people to be successful. That's when we start seeing the learning. That's when we start seeing people elevating themselves to the next level. And yet we all have to go through those other elements of not being successful in order to ramp up that learning or heighten that awareness. And I think once that's achieved, then we can start making the step to the next level. And if we get stuck in one of those areas, then we may not ever be able to move forward from that. And that would be unfortunate. The people that I see, and this is the great thing about our organization, so often coming out of that process, people are, they may be upset, or for myself, I was upset. I was unsure of which path I should go, when I was younger. And then once I started figuring things out, I just set different goals for myself, and then I was able to achieve the goal of making the team. And it's, man, it's just, yeah, it's an accomplishment, and it's a great accomplishment. And I don't want to undersell that either. And it brings a lot of emotions with it. And it is a great thing to be a part of. And it's also a great thing to be part of that tryout process. And I've met so many people through that process where I feel like I can go East Coast to West Coast. And I know so many people across the US that I can connect with if I need to give someone a call and say, hey, coming your way, can we connect, or whatever the case. There's opportunity there. So that's, I think, what brings that our organization brings people together over 3,000 miles, and that's pretty special.
That's a cool journey. Go ahead, Ange.
How would you describe your role or your contribution on this team?
Oh, on this team, I feel like a little bit more of a mentor than ever before, and I feel like, which I think is a natural process. And it is because of those experiences. And I also believe that I feel more like the technical element to this team, where I'm by all means not a big mountain skier. Most of the mountains that I've worked at have been fairly flat. It's great when we get trips to the larger mountains, like when we're going to Academy this year in Big Sky. When I get on terrain like that, I get anxiety when we're standing up there on steep, long runs, and I love it. And so my comfort level isn't nearly what it is there as what it would be on Vail when I'm on Ramshorn or Avanti, and something where we're going to lay down some technical and accurate type of turns, and that's what I'm going to coach. So, but yeah, I think this time more around, it's the, being a mentor and helping out where I can, giving input where I can, and trying to be one of the, trying to use my experiences to help this team move forward. So.
And that was one of the questions we wanted to ask you was how can you help some of the folks out there that, to be better mentors? How can we help support those around us? I mean, it's kind of a big thing here in the East. We're trying to mentor some of our next core crew that's in the younger realm. And, I don't think it should be just the crew that volunteered off the ed staff. I think it's a lot of people in the locker room, and just some advice that maybe you could give them on how to go about that and support that.
I think we've been sharing with this conversation. I think we've been sharing it is the three of us bring a lot of experience into this industry. And if we can share those experiences with those folks in the locker room and draw from those experiences to help people move forward, I think that's huge. Whether that's experiences of building a clientele, becoming certified, building relationships across the U.S. That's a crux of being a mentor. And there are challenges and there are wins along the way. And, I start to think of what those conversations look like when I have a group of level 3 certified candidates out there who are wondering maybe how to make this a career. That seems to be a really hot topic right now. And how do we keep people in that late 20s, early 30s stage in this association as a career? And there are mountains that I think have the business to help support that. And then there are other mountains that I think that maybe it's a little bit more of a part-time, maybe it's a little bit more of a part-time business. But how do we take our experiences and get people to give them the knowledge to help them move forward with their goals? And so like I said, whether that's from passing an exam or whether that's building a clientele and being successful that way. So that's the way I look at it. And and then trying to be as positive as you can, because, there's nothing's perfect. And there's been a lot of conversation about where ski resorts are heading and, this and that. And we can either draw from the negative or we can draw from the positives and continue to move forward. And the one thing that is consistent about this business is that it's inconsistent and it's continually evolving, because we all work for resorts that want to make money. And our goal, our job, we want to support our clientele, and we can continue to grow our business, which then helps support the resort and create lifelong skiers. And that's the secret to the success. Anyways, I feel like I'm rambling on right now, but that's kind of where I'm at. So
well, that's good though. And that keeps Angelo sort of keep me from rambling. And then the people really want to listen to Mike. They don't want to listen to KS and company. They just want to listen to you guys. But when it comes to, I imagine you've had a few mentors. We know your uncle was one of your mentors, and you kind of described that relationship. Some other folks that maybe have mentored you along the way, has it always been kind of like your uncle that, he kind of helped you along? Or did you have to search some folks out? Did you go looking for some certain folks and say, hey, can you help me out? I've got some questions. I'm just thinking for some folks that we hear a lot that like, we don't have anyone to look to. And I was just curious how you reached out, or did everyone reach out to you?
Actually, I feel like I reached out to people. So first of all, at many different levels. So peer-to-peer level, let's say. So I've had, when I've gone through the process, I've always had a buddy to go through the process with. So I remember level 3, it was Aaron Rosen and John Juba. and we were all at North Star at the time. We were training. We were continuing to move forward through the level 3 process. Jose Lacasse was one of those folks that was in that grouping with us. We were peer-to-peer mentors. We helped put together tech talks. We helped put together training days. We pushed each other to be better. So that was one form of mentoring each other. Once I got beyond level 3, then I sought out some other people where I remember joining Chris Fellows on one of his North American Ski Training Center trips and going to that as a client. And so it was up in Whistler, and I was able to ski with Steve Smart for the week. So skiing with Steve, and Steve Smart was on the Canadian team at the time. So gathering some information from him, bending his ear, and then Chris Fellows and I, and we're still very tight, is that, drawing from his experiences. And then he made the team. I think he made the team 2 terms before I did. So 2000, I think, is when he made it. And continuing to try to feed and gather information from him and ask him for coaching. So then I started reaching out. And when I started going through the regional team process and then the national team process, Kevin Mitchell was another buddy that I leaned on and asked for help and helped me train and as another mentor to make that next step. And then when I start thinking about this past team, this past team tryout, I would rely on other supervisors and managers for feedback in different areas. And for me, it did not matter what level of certification someone brought to the table. What I found is I would set up a scenario and then ask for feedback in one specific area that was easy to identify as black and white as possible. So whether that was in my skiing, whether that was in my presentations, whatever the case, point being though, is that we have so many intelligent people that are in this industry and in this organization that if we go into, the more we can go into our conversations to create dialogue and seek understanding or seek information from one another or try to reach out to people and be an active listener, the more we can learn about ourselves as well. So I think there's a lot to that. There was a lot involved in this conversation or this answer. And but mentors, we've got to have mentors along the way. And you can find mentors in some of the most unique places that you just don't need someone as a team member to be a mentor if you're trying to get to the team. You can grab someone. There are other people that are good at delivering indoor presentations or delivering on-hill clinics, and you can get feedback from a lot of different people if you pay attention.
He's processing. He's ready. This is where I have to ramble a little bit. He's processing his question. There you go, Angel.
You give me too much credit.
I have to. That's why I'm a team member. I got to support you. Somehow come up with something for you.
I have always found value in looking outside of whatever, for lack of a better word, organization I'm involved with at the moment. So, like, for example, you're on your path to the national team. You're on your path to divisional ed staff. You're on your path to level 2. We have a 3-faceted model that dictates what we do as snow sports instructors, right? So it makes sense to get help on your technical skills from somebody in the field, right? But it's not limited to that. And we talked about the value of wrestling and football to the development of your athletic skills in skiing or snowboarding or whatever. But, I just think it makes a lot of sense to look outside of organizations, because I'll never forget, Dave, you probably remember this. Pete Allison came to our ed staff training a couple of years ago. Maybe it was 3 years ago. It was right before the shutdowns. Yeah. And he kicked off his presentation to the Eastern Division ed staff he's fully invested in what we do in PSIA, AASI, but he said, we're in danger of becoming a mutual appreciation society, right? Where you just sit around and tell each other how great you are. And, but the point is, 2/3 of what we do isn't specific to snow sports. One third of what we do is people skills, and another third of what we do is teach. And so I've always liked the idea of going outside of whatever organization you're in to look for, advice or mentors or whatever, points of interest elsewhere. And I think there's a lot of value in that, because you're going to hear perspectives that certainly you haven't considered and probably haven't been considered very much in your organization as a whole. I like that idea, Mike, of you have a lot, it's a team effort. Everything we do is a team effort, That's all I had to say.
Yeah. Well, I want to follow that with, part of that team is, I know my team. I mean, you said, was it 2001? You met now your wife, but met her, I think you said 2001 and shortly after. And then, how much has that been a support system, a mentor, a push for you through the years, and especially to go for the third term after taking a term off?
Well, first of all, she told me that the only way she would marry me is if I was a better skier than her, and she's a pretty darn good skier. So I had to keep working up my skills there. Sorry, I'm just remembering a story remembering some time back, because she's also a pretty good snowboarder, and when she took me out snowboarding and kind of ran me into the ground. So that's a whole nother story, another day. So anyways, no, it's important to have that support network. It had to be a mutual agreement. It wasn't, I wasn't moving forward without a conversation with her, because my travel schedule impacts her and the kids now that we have. And so it's a mutual thing. And as the kids get older here, that becomes, more challenging, and wanting to spend more time with the kids, or needing to spend more time with the kids, is important. So we have to find that balance. And yeah, over the last couple of years, I made some changes to find that balance, and team was part of those changes, or to try out for the team again. So I could make the changes that I needed, so I could balance family and on snow commitments. So yeah. And yeah, the third term, as you brought up, it was, I took a term off and thought I was going a different direction 6 years ago. Decided that this is where my passion lies, in this direction. And so taking a term off made it incredibly challenging to come back. And there have been a handful of people that have been successful coming back for after a term off. And yeah, it was not the easiest. It was not the easiest tryout because of that. And so, but anyways, here we are. So the cards played out.
That's good. And you've talked a lot, that I've seen some things and come out on George Thomas's podcast. You talked with him. I think it was in some of the written too of Meet Mike Hafer, team member, about the connections and making the connections. And through the tryout, you were definitely trying to connect with everybody. And I think that's something that I've noticed you've done since I met you back in, I think it was 2012 when I tried out, when you were there trying out, that you definitely do have that ability to connect with everybody. And I was just curious if you can talk to us about that a little bit in terms of how that's developed. And I am curious now, which I knew you were in the military, but I'm wondering, as you talked about that camaraderie and like the powder day, that you want your friends there in a powder day. I mean, how much has the military and that team and working close together with all of them, has that shaped and formed you to be able to make those connections now?
Well, there's so much packed into that question. Wait, where do I want to start? Let me first start with with this disclaimer. I don't connect with everyone. I wish I did. There are some people that I still struggle with, and I for myself, I've got to say, I'm not perfect by any means, and I still blow it, and it's still something that when I blow it, I get very uncomfortable or get uncomfortable with, because I feel like as a team member, and maybe a little bit of my perfectionism, or when I think I have to be a perfectionist, when I blow it, I feel guilty. I feel bad. And sometimes I've got to let that go, because like I was saying, I can't be perfect. And my goal is to connect with as many people as I can, because that's what we do. And this is a social sport. It's a social environment. So back to the military, I do not believe the military, and I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but my experiences, I don't believe the military helped me with those connections, or helped me create connections, or understand how to create connections. In fact, it was a lot of, here you go, here are 40 people, and you guys have, and it was all guys at the time, so you guys have to get along. This is your goal. It was the common goal, or the common ground, the common outcomes that put everybody in that room. And that, I don't think it created strong connections. Some of the feedback I received after my 2000 tryout was, it'd be great if you could get in front of people more often and in different circumstances. And so what I found out about myself then is that being a leader from the standpoint of being a people leader, when you're leading groups, when you're leading clinics, when you're on the snow, it's not about being command oriented or giving directives. It's very much about digging deeper and finding out what others' wants, needs, and goals, outcomes are, and then being able to be flexible and adjustable and adaptable to what someone else needs. So what someone else's needs are. And I also think it's about being vulnerable, and something that I've been getting better at, that is still a goal. So I guess if I say it here, it's going to hold me accountable, is that often I will ask how the clinic or how the lesson is going. But I'll ask it midday of the lesson. If it's an all-day lesson, ask it midday of a lesson, or ask it partway through the lesson. And I found that sometimes it catches people by surprise, that they're surprised that I'm asking that question, because like I said, I'm not perfect, and sometimes I'm off base, and sometimes it's pretty difficult to hear the feedback that, hey, and maybe that's one of the pieces of the feedback that I hear, is that I'm not getting enough individualized feedback at this moment in time. Can you adjust that? And as long as I come through and adjust that, then we have a positive outcome when it comes to that lesson plan or that clinic. So that can be very, like I said, it can feedback like that can be very nerve-wracking. It can be very uncomfortable, and yet it shows a lot of vulnerability, and it shows that that you care. And so, yeah, that's just one tactic that I've used, and I don't just use it as a tactic. I use it because my goal is to create the best on-snow experience that I can, with the larger picture that if we can get more people coming back and involved in our association, then we are going to be successful. Because when I hear things in the locker room like, we don't have enough instructors and I'm working 30 days in a row and I need a day off, we have an opportunity to have an impact on that, a larger opportunity, by how many people we can get involved into our association. So I just don't rely on, and maybe that's some of my experiences coming off of a manager position, but it's also, I think, some of my experiences that are coming from trainings and whatnot. So anyways, I feel like I'm rambling again, but that's kind of where my headspace is at.
Yeah. Would you put yourself in, I just wanted to ask a quick, would you consider yourself an extrovert or introvert?
Oh, I tend to draw energy from outside. and I have a tough time bringing energy out into the group. So very involved. I have 8 different people who have never met each other before and have to help try to create that dynamic. So yeah, that's a good question. Very good question.
People are funny because they think all of us are just these big extrovert, and go out and then a lot of us are not.
Yeah.
No.
A lot of teachers aren't extroverted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike, what's your day-to-day now? Like aside from the team, tell the folks who are listening what you do, what your job is.
So I made a career decision last November, and so not just a few months ago. And I moved out of a senior manager position in a ski school to teaching on the front line again. And so my day-to-day, just as an example, today I was out with 2 8-year-old twins and their sister, who is 11, and I was managing the 2 boys with their sister, and there was a split. Sister and one of the brothers were much faster than the third, and so how do you keep them all excited? And in addition to that, their past experiences, maybe by some family members, have brought them into some steeper terrain. And so all they wanted to do was ski blacks and double blacks. And skill set wasn't quite there with the confidence. So that's what the day-to-day looked like today. And so, or for today. And that's what my day-to-day has been looking like. I think it's pretty fascinating. And for me, it's understandable just by my personality, that some people, when they look at me, they don't look at me as a kids instructor, and yet I will teach whatever comes my way. So beginning of the year, I had a 3 and 5-year-old beginners to start off with. And then I've taught folks that are older than us on this call here. So,
Are there folks older than us on this moment?
Oh man.
So yeah. So now I show up to work. I grab whatever comes my way, and I go out and teach somebody the best I can, and hope they improve and want to show them the fun part of skiing as well. So that's what I do.
What's your go-to ski?
Oh, go-to ski is the Blizzard HRC.
I have seen you on that quite a bit in the photos.
That's if you don't know, that's a 76 millimeter underneath the foot ski. So
that's I do love that one. That is a fine ski.
You have been on the WRC a little bit though, Angela. And what did you call that ski when you get on it?
Ski's a monster. Actually, that ski's in the shop right now at the resort because I made some bad decisions last week and lots of core shots. So that ski's in the hospital right now, but the HRC is a terrific ski. Yeah.
Well, so I say the HRC, and maybe it's just because it's this year, because this year's been pretty rough on equipment, and I'm seeing that ski in the background there, that Brahma.
The Brahma's right there.
Oh yeah. And I will share with you that when I was at Breckenridge, the Brahma is such a good ski for Breckenridge. So it depends on the mountain I'm on. It also depends on the year and snow conditions. And it feels like the HRC is this year. And I've got to say, Dave, if you haven't skied it, or Angelo, if you haven't skied it yet, next year's Brahma, it's the real deal. So
cool.
Yeah. And so we've got some good skis. We've got some good skis coming out.
We're both happy to demo that ski.
Yeah, we're going to have to get a hold of Joe. Maybe Joe will send us a pair to try, man.
I don't want to speak for my partner, but I think we both ski it. Hey, where's Mike Hafer in 15 years?
Oh, I'm retired, living off my Vail lifetime pass.
Yes.
Right on.
We'll all be skiing together. We'll be skiing together on our lifetime pass. Angelo's got a few more years than you and me, Mike. You got one more year?
1 year.
I should have it. I've got my years in. They're going through their arbitration stuff, so I'm hoping to get that. How do you like your ski tuned?
Oh, we'll call it 3 degrees on the edge, and the base bevel changes depending on the ski. So slalom HRC, I tend to run with a 0.7, and then as I get wider, it'll go to a 1 degree from the Brahma up. Yeah. So Brahma and Rustler, I'll run a 1 degree, and that's a Rustler 10. So,
and I've seen your boots. They've been at the airport. You had them. There was some animal or something that you were sitting next to their back. I think it was in December or whenever. What's your boot you're riding in?
Oh, it's the World Cup 130.
Yeah.
So
just the 130, huh? Troy's at 150.
Good question. Let me clarify that since you brought it up. When I moved to Colorado, it was pretty easy to go to the 130 because the temperatures out here tend to keep that boot a little bit stiffer. The 150 is a good boot. And when I was in Tahoe, I liked it because of the warmer temps. But out here, the 130 because it gives me a little bit more versatility in the terrain. So
yeah. And I know you like to chat. You said you've reached out to folks for questions, answers, and stuff. If you could sit down with anybody, if you could choose anybody anywhere, who would you want to sit down and chat with now?
Anybody, anywhere.
Yeah. Other than Angela Ross.
Well, definitely you two guys. And by the way, I was so flattered that you two guys called me up and said, "Hey, is there, can you give us some time?" So thank you very much because I think these are so important because, like I said, from the experiential standpoint, hearing each other's experiences, I think that can that helps all of us grow. So one person that I think I could sit down and chat with is going to be Warren Buffett, so I could figure out how to manage my money differently, so I can retire in 15 years.
Then he can afford to eat and do everything else, Angelo, on that lifetime pass. Oh man, that's good. So you're an avid cyclist on mountain bike and road. You've talked about that on other platforms. How much of that is your training program? Like I know, because I've heard you before, I know you spend a little other time gym and other stuff. And I'm just curious as to your balance there and how much is biking, how much is in the gym, other stuff you do.
Yeah. So as soon as the roads start clearing off here, which I think is usually July in Summit County, you can laugh at that. That was kind of a joke.
Yeah, I know.
Because the winters are really short here. So, no, I on my road, between my road and mountain bike, I get about 1,000 to 3,000 miles a summer on the two bikes, depending on how I change on and off, and try to hit that especially for the endurance portion during the summer. And then sometimes on the trainer, I tend to get really bored on a trainer, so I have a tough time on the trainer. But I like the Zwift program. It keeps me motivated. And I've been a little slacking at it this year, but so that's one of the training programs. Beginning in September, October, usually September. That's when I start hitting the gym again, and usually run through the gym. And it's just a couple nights a week for the months leading into the ski season. And then last year I was really good, where I kept going 2 nights a week throughout the season. Again, this year has been slacking. My travel schedule and other things have gotten in the way a little bit. But yeah, that's where you've got to. I believe you've got to mix up the strength training with the endurance training, and keep that going. And then the cross training in between. So we talk about road biking and mountain biking. The mountain biking allows me a feel for the terrain that the road bike doesn't give me, and yet the road bike gives me the power and the strength, especially when I have some rides around here where I can climb 3,000 feet right out of my front door on the road, and it's consistent. So it's that combination that keeps me going. And then in addition to that, I try to get out and play hockey every once in a while too, to keep me entertained and keep me busy. But for me, whether I'm ADD, who knows, but I really don't like the gym that much. I just think it's such a closed environment. I would rather be out on the road smelling the fresh air, or, playing a game of hockey or something like that, helps me stay in shape. So I just have a tough time when I'm focused, and I know I still need the gym work. And my wife is a physical therapist, so I have her to stay on me.
Oh, there you go.
So she helps guide me and motivate me. So there we go.
Yeah, I had to get a physical therapist to come talk to Angelo about that skateboarding on his ramp there, because his wife wasn't getting him off the ramp.
And you know what? Neither did the physical therapist.
No, we can't tell that unless she's listening. Don't tell Margie.
No, she's not listening. She got me off of there for 6 months. That was the agreement, and that's what we did.
You feeling good for it?
Yeah. Is that a deck? Or there's a couple decks in your background there.
Couple decks there. Yeah, there's a Vision Mark Gonzalez. That was when we first started to skate back in the early 80s. That was the first pro model I bought, was a Mark Gonzalez, and it was that graphic, and it was a gray paint. It was beautiful. It's probably why I love gray to this day. And then there's a 1987 Steve Caballero from PAL. I just love the colors of that one. It's like a metallic copper and that teal dragon. But that art was pretty important to us when we were kids, and I still have an affinity for that style. Yeah. I love the vibe of that.
Yeah, that one's sticking out to me. So
yeah.
Yeah, you have to try his deck if you skateboard. He's got a cool little deck, and the ramp in his backyard there. That's pretty cool what you built, Angelo. And it was hard for him not to be on that for 6 months.
It was, yeah. But injuries will compel you to sit still for a while if they're good enough. And I was going to ask you, Mike, like how do you this time of year, we're getting into March, like, so how do you physically keep yourself going? Because you're under a lot of microscopes when you're on the team, and performance is a real deal. So how do you keep it up?
Yeah. So it's been a long time since I taught year round. It's been a dozen years, I think. So, and exactly the question that you're bringing up is something that's a hot topic in the locker room right now, is that I feel the season catching up to me. I feel I'm getting tired. And so I have to manage my schedule, and I don't do it well. I make sure that I get a day off here and there, because there has to be recovery time. And I know it's been tough, both physically and mentally. That's where we get run down. That's where we get into trouble. So I sneak a few days in there, here and there. And like last week, I was able to get out with my kids, but I feel, it's an active rest day, but it feels lazy. But then we also need that mental recovery too, to stay fresh, because back to your point about being under a microscope, it's not just about every turn that you make, but it's also your presentation. So it's got to be on. And yep, I get tired at this time of year. And so I'm, I think, pretty methodical about how I take days off and when I take days off.
So, what makes you smile when you watch skiing? What is it in good skiing that you go, wow, that's some good turns right there. That's amazing coming down that run. What is it that excites you in skiing?
The ski bends with purpose. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter the conditions of the terrain. So
cool. So, Angelo, any fun stuff to finish up by? I had the cool one. I thought this would be a question at the end, Mike, about, being a lifelong learner and, how have you evolved? And I think you answered that a lot through this podcast already, to folks, and learning from the experience. And you've had some bumps on the road, and you talked about how you came back from them. So I thought that was cool, just in the regular conversation. for folks to understand that. And Angelo, what do you got? Like his favorite beer or something? I know you always have a couple cool questions to finish up, man.
Actually a real question tonight. So if you had to ask a technical skiing question, who would you ask? If you had to ask a question about how to interact with people, who would you ask? And if you had a question about teaching, who would you ask?
So for the technical, I would go right to Michael Rowan or Jonathan Ballou. The teaching, I would maybe go to Zoe Mavis. And for the people skills, Robin Barnes. For team members, for peers.
Sure.
Now, when I look at other things, when I look at from a teaching perspective, I would also look at Michael Porter. And people skills, I would start to look at let me think about that one just for a second. But Nina Michael, who is a training manager at Breckenridge, she connects with everyone. And then so there's just a few names in there that I would talk to. So
what do you like about the way Zoe teaches?
She's very thoughtful and methodical about her approach. And so she seems to put together the puzzle in a really neat fashion. And that's something that draws my attention. So, yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah. So, really cool. And please thank your wife and kids for letting us have some of your time tonight when you get home from work. It's awesome. I mean, the folks out there, Angelo and I get a ton of feedback of how much they enjoy that we have guests on here from the team. The team has been amazing, especially the Blizzard Technica crew. And Blizzard Technica has been really supportive of the podcast this year, Joe Sipe and the program. So that's been awesome to have them as sponsors. And also Nick's Boot Fitting over at Mount Snow. It's been great. I know you must know Nick Blaylock, don't you? Mike, have you met Nick?
I have not.
Okay. Yeah. He's awesome dude. I've known him for a long time and definitely a supporter of the podcast. He's kind of works a lot with the technical group, but
I suggest
cool supporters.
Here when Mike comes in for Masters Academy, we have dinner with Mike and Nick.
Yeah, definitely. If you haven't met, but
wow.
It's been great, and it's neat. A lot of folks just come to us, and we've heard a lot from down in Angelo's neck of the woods that it's just neat. For a lot of times, they never have connection with the team, and this has been one of their avenues to connect with a lot of the team members through this. So we really appreciate your time. I know our listeners do. So thank you a bunch.
Thank you, because I enjoy this, and it's it's really hard for me sometimes to chat about these things, and you guys are good about drawing out some information, and I hope it's valuable to folks. When we look at, especially like the question around being a mentor, hopefully they will find common ground or maybe some experiences to draw from that they can say, hey, the guys at the top are still struggling with, or still continue to try to develop their people skills or their teaching skills and technical skills. It just because you're at one level doesn't mean you stop learning, and that's important. So
cool.
And my favorite beer is root beer, and if the pizza is gone, I'm going to text both you guys right after this.
We'll have to call somebody out there and have a pizza delivered, won't we?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Enjoy it, and looking forward to seeing you in Big Sky in a couple of weeks. And
great.
Be safe.
Maybe we'll do that remote where you're out there, Angelo. We'll have to do something. We wanted to do it last year. We'll have to try to do something when you're out there. We'll do a podcast while you're there talking to some of the crew or whatever. We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
That would be really cool. But thanks, everybody. We've had Mike Hafer, Alpine team member, third term, on with us tonight. And also thanks to our sponsors, Blizzard Technica and Nick's Boot Fitting over at Mount Snow. Without all their support, we probably would not be able to keep this thing going, which is really cool. Thanks, everybody. This has been The Fall Line with Chaos and Company.